Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video for the month of October. And when I really say October, I really mean Halloween, because I have Halloween on the mind. Halloween's a very creative season because there's so much creativity that goes on. And so I'm in the mood for that all the time. And so I decided that since it's the season of Halloween, let me go ahead and continue my little Halloween marathon of videos here on YouTube and take it and mix it with something else that I have a passion for, and that is music. I've been playing around with music for a while now. I've been making songs, I've been doing this, and it's a second pastime for me. And so I thought, how about I make a list, which you can say is kind of cliche, and make a top six list. And so I decided to take my favorite horror movie soundtracks and horror movie theme songs and put them together and make a list out of it. And so here you go, my top six of my favorite horror movie theme songs and or soundtracks. So let's go ahead and start off with number six, and that would be the original Dawn of the Dead. Now, I remember when I saw this when I was young. Yeah, I saw movies like this when I was young, but don't worry. I mean, I didn't. Doesn't look like anything happened to me now, right? Hmm? So anyway, saw Dawn of the Dead when I was young, and I was actually the first time I saw it, I was actually taken away by it because I realized this wasn't your usual horror movie affair with. It wasn't your typical zombie film because there was so much more going on with it. There was much. I think Dawn of the Dead has more of a adventure sci-fi feel to it, much more than a horror feel to it. But then again, there's zombies in it, and you can't say no, it's a horror film because there's zombies in it. And yeah, I'll give you that. So, but I think that really it is an example of how horror movies can be so much more than just the simplistic cliches that people think of when they think of horror films. There's horror elements in it, but it's a much more grand, much more fantastic experience because it's a much more cerebral film, much more complicated horror film. And also, the soundtrack to Dawn of the Dead is, I think it probably makes up 40% of the excitement of that film. And the original soundtrack is actually done by a group, I believe, named Goblin, and they did the entire soundtrack. And it's a very fun, exciting soundtrack that really gets you hyped up. In fact, if you go and check out the original trailer for Dawn of the Dead, it's just watching the trailer alone gets you hyped to watch the film. And I would say a majority of the appeal that you see both in the trailer and the film has to do a lot with the soundtrack that was done by Goblin for the film. All right, so let's get down to number five, and that is going to be Phantasm. Now, I would say that Phantasm, the theme itself, is on par with many other recognizable themes, much like John Carpenter's theme for the original Halloween. And also, if you want to put that in the same category, Friday the 13th. But Phantasm, I can't say much about Phantasm because I didn't see the whole movie in its entirety. I actually saw bits and pieces of it, but there were still some amazing moments in that film, and I can't believe how gory those little silver death balls can actually be. And there were also some great moments too. Anytime the tall man was doing his scary thing and terrorizing all the main characters, those moments with the tall man, fantastic scary moments. I wish I could say more about Phantasm, but I didn't see much of it. But if you listen to the theme song itself. I mean, that is a great theme, and not just a theme that just hits one note and goes throughout the entire length. There's little nuances, little sounds. It's just it's a really good constructed theme, and I say it's probably one of the best horror themes that was ever constructed, but I already said that. So let me go on before I repeat myself, and let's go on to number 4, and that's going to be Candyman. And this is the movie that stars Tony Todd as the main boogeyman. And the thing about the Candyman theme is that not it's much more of a intense melancholy theme. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. And it's done by Philip Glass, who's known for basically making a career out of instrumental music. But the thing about the Candyman theme, the first time I heard it, I was taken away by it because it wasn't really a theme that was constructed to be horrific, but something that was supposed to be uh, tragic, dramatic, horrific, yes, and probably a little bit depressing. I would say that it's a theme that is a little bit more in the operatic world than anything. I mean, if you look at the movie Candyman, of which I've seen little bits and pieces of it, but it's really much more of a tragic story, and so much more fitting to say a operatic song theme than it would your typical horror movie theme. But still, a fantastic theme. If you haven't seen it, you can find it, and it's really sad, depressing. It gives you that feeling of you're not quite sure what to think because there's so many different emotions that kind of crisscross each other, and you have to experience for yourself. It makes you feel a lot of different things. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to number 3, and that's going to be Psycho, the theme done by Bernard Herrmann. And I, I, I would say that the Psycho theme, there's so many things to enjoy about this theme, and there's so much respect that has to be given to this theme because it did so many things. First, it became probably the first recognizable famous horror score in modern day cinema. If you think about it, this was before Jaws, it's before Halloween, it's before any other horror based theme soundtrack and horror theme that you can think of. Although, to be fair, Psycho is not really a horror film, it's really a suspense film. But yet, there are, and trust me, if you saw the movie, you know that it's more than just suspense because there is surprise shocks that happen in that film. And and the funny thing too is that the music really does a lot to enhance the film, because if you think about it, what would the shower scene be without the music? What Most of the movie is actually lots of scenes of people walking around, driving around, doing mundane things, but yet but then there is the enhancement of the music. The music carries a lot of the film. If you go back and watch it, the film really is not the same with Bernard Herrmann's music. In fact, Alfred Hitchcock said himself that the music added so much to the film, and it actually went beyond his expectations to what he thought was going to be added to his film. And then also another thing to give credit when it comes to the theme, it's actually, there's very little going on in the sounds that Bernard Herrmann makes. I mean, really, he has probably, I believe it was 3 different types of violin sections, and so he probably had 4 or 5 violins, 4 or 5 cellos, 4 or 5 bass violins. There's very not so much. There's not really a big orchestra carrying the sound of Psycho, because when you hear the music of Psycho, it's just a very small group of string players, and, and yet it's amazing how much you get out of that. I'll tell you what, the thing about Psycho, people say that what Psycho did to the shower scene is the same thing that Jaws, that theme, did for the water. And I have to tell you that watching Psycho, I will sometimes get that feeling that I have to watch out when I'm taking a shower, and because that scene there is actually a really it's a scene that really gets to you because being in the shower and most likely you might end up dying in that kind of situation. It's a very vulnerable situation, and again, it does the same thing for me like it would to somebody who saw Jaws and was terrified of going in the water. All right, so enough about Psycho now. Let's move on to number two. And number two would be Rosemary's Baby. I remember watching a top 10, well, actually, it was a top 100 list of the scariest movie moments, and Rosemary's Baby was on that list. And someone commented saying, without the music in Rosemary's Baby, it wouldn't be as scary. And again, just like the Dawn of the Dead soundtrack, a lot of the mood and effect of Rosemary's Baby comes from that theme that is played. And it's funny because you might say that it kind of sounds like a very hokey sounding theme, but yeah, it's funny because someone once said that horror themes, the best ones, the ones that work the most effective, have a nursery rhyme, a type of song that you would sing to a kid, and this is probably the one of the best examples of that. And and yet, some people might think it's I don't know, it's kind of, uh, but yet it works for this film, and 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 when you have a movie that's called Rosemary's Baby, when you're dealing with a film that is about the deliverance of a crazy demonic baby, then of course you have to have a theme that's going to suit the nature of this character. And of course it has to be a creepy lullaby because what else are you going to use? So, then let's move on to my number one pick, a movie that had a theme so incredibly terrifying, exciting, and great at the same time. I was kind of hesitant to actually go and watch that film again and again in my past years because this was just, oh man. Anyway, let me just say it right now. The theme from the Amityville Horror, the original one. Now, the thing about the Amityville Horror theme, it's this one too is very childlike. And the funny thing about the Amityville Horror theme, interesting trivia is that this was originally going to be used for the theme for The Exorcist, but then The Exorcist used that Tubular Bell theme, and so that doesn't matter because both themes work fine on their own. But the theme for the Amityville Horror, the fact that you hear in the beginning, I think that the theme for the Amityville Horror is just as iconic as the house, the haunted house that everyone is familiar with in the Amityville Horror. And I think that if there's if there's any couple of things that you remember from the Amityville Horror, one's the house. The other thing is something else, and then the third thing would probably be the theme because it's a very memorable theme and it's so effective. The way they use it at the beginning is basically just a little teaser for you, and it basically just hypes you up in a terrifying way. You're like, watch out because here comes this terrific, horrifying story. This story that was apparently true, and yeah, it's when it comes to the movie itself, it's strange because here's a really great horror movie theme, and yet it's in a movie that's not really that good. Because I remember being freaked out by some scenes in this film, and I would still say that there are some effective moments in this film, but yet for some reason it feels like a film that is made for TV. It's kind of it holds itself back from being really amazingly scary. And also too, after by the time you're done with the film, when you get to the end scene and you see the family drive off, and just the way that they kind of end the film, you kind of sit there and go, "Oh, really? Okay." It's kind of, I don't know. To me, it's kind of an anti-climax type of ending to a film. So yeah. But anyway, even if the movie's not that good, you still got a great thing going on. And still find to be very effective. And the one movie horror theme that really gets to me, both in a fun and scary way. All right, so that's going to be it for now. I'll see you guys later. There's still going to be a ton of stuff coming for this month. Hopefully, I'll have enough time to get to them so that way I can keep a promise to myself and get the stuff done in time. But in the meantime, thank you for watching again, and thank you for all your time and patience. I realize I haven't made a video in a long time. Yeah, I just basically just went the whole summer without making videos, but I finally had some good ideas to turn into videos, and so I have to thank the month of October, but really Halloween for for that source of inspiration. All right, so I'll stop talking now. I'll see you guys later.